Alright, so I'm Andrew Gaug with Seattle Seahawks. I got Chapter 19, Sporting Goods and Licensed Products. A lot of information, but there's not a lot I want to leave out. I thought it all was very important. First of all, starts off entrepreneurship. That's anyone who creates an idea for better uses with existing technologies. 1911, George Tryon, one of the first entrepreneurs, he had a fishing and tackle business, and that soon became one of the leading sporting goods suppliers east of the Mississippi River. In the 1940s and 50s, then came Phelan and Brunswick, and they established production of billiards equipment. And then later on, in 1884, Brunswick, he merged his company with his two biggest competitors. He made a $1.5 million operation, and that at that time was bigger than all of his competitors combined. And then he moved on into bowling in the 1890s. Later on, actually same year, 1884, Hillerich and Bradsby, they got into baseball bat production. In 1888, then everyone knows the name Rawlings. They began operating in St. Louis. One of the key entrepreneurs in sporting goods and licensed equipment was Albert G. Spalding. Of course, everyone knows him for Spalding basketballs, but he actually got his start in baseball. He owned the Chicago White Stockings of the NL, and he was pretty much the pinnacle of the sporting goods industry in the late 1800s. With his baseball reputation, he was a former baseball player, and he had an $800 loan. He focused on targeting sporting goods for the expanding middle class in the U.S. Technological advances to manufacturing of bats, baseball gloves, golf gloves, bikes, hunting goods, and football equipment all helped his success. Spalding, he actually also, a big reason for his success was he, in a way, created his own market for the middle class searching for leisure. Basically focused on exercise. He even made guides on how to play games and exercise. Being the official supplier of NL baseball really helped him with his credibility. He sold to retailers for a set price with guarantees that those retailers would sell at that price. So this helped create stable markets, and it really cut down on price cutting from the retailers. In 1903, Harvard football coach Bill Reed, he sought safer equipment for his players. And then in 1906, the Sporting Goods Manufacturers Association was created, and this becomes a pretty important association later on in history. And their goal essentially was to make college athletics safer and less violent. In the 1920s, sporting goods got a lot of endorsements from Knute Rockne, Honus Wagner, Nat Lajoie. All those guys really helped boost the industry. And then, of course, also in the 1920s, you got Adolf Dassler, who shortened his name, and you get Adidas, who founded the company. He specialized in, basically his niche was soccer cleats and track spikes. He got a big boost in 1936 when Jesse Owens wore his track spikes at the Olympics in Berlin. Of course, that's the famous Olympics where Jesse Owens won so many gold medals and kind of stared down Adolf Hitler. His brother, Rudolf Dassler, founded Puma, and for a while they competed, but Adidas eventually won out as a big contributor to the industry because of their partnership with FIFA. Some more sporting goods history. In the 1940s, sales kind of dropped off a bit with World War II and whatnot, but after the Korean War in the 1950s, the industry really got a boost. In the 50s, tennis stars Fred Perry and Jean-René Lacoste, who both helped found Izod, they helped launch the fashion sportswear, which is a lot in find a lot in golf and tennis and sports like that. In the 1960s, there's an influx of imports from Japan. A lot of Japanese baseball products. They're a big country, big in baseball. 1970s, there was interest in increased liability of this equipment, the safety of the equipment, injury concerns of all this equipment. That was all a big boost, and it helped create safer equipment, and that helped the reputation. And then in the 80s and 90s, products and consumer demographics became more diverse, and also this era, saw the rise of big companies like Nike and Reebok. In 1980, Nike's revenue was 269 million, in that year that passed Adidas, and that really helped with Air Jordan and Bow Nose. Those two campaigns catapult Nike to $2 billion in 1999. And then in 2005, Adidas purchases Reebok, which really got them a big chunk of change with Reebok's deals with the NBA and the NFL to license equipment. And then in 2009, Nike's net sales were 19.1 billion, so they're just growing even more and more. So now we move on to the history of licensed products. Many teams back in the 1800s, they got their names from distinctive apparel, like Mark touched on, the Cincinnati Red Stockings. It was a sort in like the Chicago White Sox, Boston Red Sox, teams like that. Licensed apparel based on the notion that fans would purchase these goods to draw them closer to their beloved teams or athletes. In 1924, Francis Wallace, he was a sports writer. He noticed walking in New York City that he passed a shop. He saw a lot of neckties in this one shop window. They were in the colors of Army, Harvard, Princeton, Yale, and Notre Dame.
Okay, you made a mistake. Somebody else.
Sorry for the interruption. So that was a big start in apparel. In 1947, Oregon's AD, he got permission from Walt Disney to use Donald Duck's image for the school's mascot. So that was a big deal for licensing. Some consider that the first license agreement, but really the major one came in 1973 when UCLA's became the first school to enter into a license agreement when one of its bookstores granted a license to a watch manufacturer. And then in the early 1980s, collegiate licensed product sales totaled about 100 million. In just 15 years, in 1995, that boosted up to 2.5 billion. In that same year, NFL's sales were 3 billion, NCAA was 2.7, MLB is 2.5, NBA also 2.5, and NHL is 1 billion. A lot of these professional leagues have a properties division in which they have for-profit branch in which every league of professional sports leagues have licensing programs. And what these property divisions do is they approve licenses, they police trademark infringement, they distribute revenues equally between all the league's franchises, and they even help some in marketing and sponsorship. In 1963, it was the first NFL license agreement in which they granted it to sports specialties. Pete Rozelle, the NFL commissioner, was a big deal in that. MLB's came in 1966, NHL in 1969, and the NBA was a little late to the party. They got their first deal in 1982. In the 1960s, the MLBPA was the first players' association that got in on the licensing of players, in which they allowed Coca-Cola to put players on. They put their players' likenesses on bottle caps, and then there's Topps cards, of course, in 1968. And the NFLPA currently works with 65 licensing companies. Industry format in sporting goods. There's three major branches of that, and there's sporting goods equipment, athletic footwear, and sports apparel. The equipment is anything from fitness products to sport-specific products like golf, tennis, soccer. Athletic footwear is branded or unbranded shoes for casual wear, active usage outdoors, Nike running shoes, Adidas cleats, stuff like that, Asics running shoes. And then sports apparel is any garment designed to use for active sports. It's like a lot of your pads and protection, stuff like that. Trade association like the SGMA, the Sporting Goods Manufacturers Association, which was founded in 1906. They currently serve more than 1,000 manufacturers and retailers and marketers in the industry, and they represent over 3,000 business locations, plants, and distribution centers. They employ 300,750,000, and they generate $75 billion in revenue. The licensing is there's licensees in licensing, and those are the big manufacturers like your Nikes, Adidas, and Asics, Puma, stuff like that. And they pay teams and leagues who end up being the licensors for the right to manufacture goods bearing the school or team's name, colors, logos, and trademarks. These licensors really assume little risk. It's essentially on the licensees, and then these licensees pay a royalty to the licensor, usually about 4 to 20% for the trademark on the products. And in 1981, the Collegiate Licensing Company was founded. Since then, that's been bought out by International Marketing Group, and now the two have combined to become IMG College. This is a big deal for like broadcasting sports events and stuff like that. They administer license agreements for about 200 schools, bowls, trophies, NCAA, and conferences as well. And then in 2008, they had 3.5 billion annual sales, but actually less than 20% of those sales occur on campus. So you see a lot of these sales don't happen where these schools are anymore. They're in these retailers like Dick's, stuff like that. Career opportunities as an entrepreneur, which is anyone that pretty much comes up with the next big thing. You can be employed by a firm like Russell or Under Armour. You can be employed by a retailer like Dick's or Champ Sports. You can be employed in licensing industries, league departments. You can be with a licensor or a licensee. If you're working manufacturing, research and development, sales and marketing, and promotions. And then retailers, there's kind of 4 different types of retailers. There's the single stores, which are kind of like a mom and pop store, which is like what you find in Athens, the Uptown Gaug T-shirts. There's a few more stores in a region, like universities here on campus. They've got 17 other stores, like in Kent State and Ohio State. Then there's your many stores, like you have many stores in the region, like Dunham Sports, which is in Athens. They have 170 stores in the Midwest, from Pennsylvania all the way to Wisconsin. And then, of course, you have your hundreds of stores nationwide, like Dick's, where they eclipse, I think, 700 stores nationwide. And then challenging issues, innovation right now, it's critical for survival, let alone just success. For Under Armour, I mean, Kevin Plank, he was a former Maryland football player. He founded that in 1995, and he found a need for water-wicking materials to help improve the clothing and keep players cool, warm, and dry. Clothing's been a big part of their sales, but in 2008, they released their first athletic shoe line. I mean, in sales in 1995, they had just 17,000, but now it's eclipsing 1 billion. Spalding, he was a major innovator. He created products for new markets, and people use his products professionally, and that really boosted the credibility of his products. And then, of course, there's ethics like issues like outsourcing. I mean, that's cheap wages and working conditions in foreign countries like China, Japan, and stuff like that. Nike and Reebok, they do a lot of that, and they get a lot of criticism. New Balance is different from them. New Balance still has a lot of manufacturing in the country, so they kind of build a reputation on that. And then Russell recently, a few years back, they lost a lot of license agreements. Russell outfits Ohio University, Georgia Tech, and I believe Western Michigan. But before that, they actually also licensed Duke, Georgetown, Stanford, Michigan, Purdue, Rutgers, and schools like that. But after they left 1,200 jobless in Honduras, after the workers unionized, they got a lot of flack for that, and a lot of schools dropped their licensing with that program, and